I'm Eric from Longbox Review.
I'm Peter from the Daily Rios, and this is episode 41 of Eric and Peter's Legion Project Podcast. Welcome back to the Legion Project Podcast. I'm your host, Peter,
And I am your host, Eric.
and this is episode 41, taking a look at issue 41 of Legion of Superheroes that came out in September of 1987, the second part of our two-part Starfinger story that began last issue. Welcome back to the podcast, one and all.
Oh, I forgot, Peter, to mention before we started recording, I did get a bit of feedback from the last episode.
Okay.
Our friend Daryl texted me, and after we had released episode 40, issue 40, and said, "Hold on, let me pull this up real quick." Besides berating us for finally getting out a new Legion episode. Not really, but he said that Starfinger hate is hilarious, which I really appreciated because I felt like I was coming across just a little too negative.
No, no. Oh, no, I think it's number one, it's warranted. Number two, we don't go that deep into our hatred.
Yeah,
And it's all done in love, right? Because we want it to be good and we
yeah,
want it
yep.
to, we're going in with hopeful eyes, even if we come out with, ready to just tear the issue apart.
Sour looks. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah. We do have a lot to do this episode. Like as I mentioned, we're going to do the two-part, we're going to finish Starfinger. Then, when we take our little tour of Legion appearances throughout the DC Universe in September of 1987, we will go back to Amethyst, the miniseries, with Amethyst number 2. We are going to go into Who's Who, like we normally do. And then taking a look at Millennium, because that's now starting. And we might have a few other announcements as well.
Full of fun stuff.
I think we need to and we should just jump right into Legion of Superheroes issue 41.
All right, issue 41. Shall ne'er burn so bright. I just I have a thing to say about the title. Okay, this is by Paul Levitz, Greg LaRocque, Mike DiCarlo, and Arn Starr is doing the inkings there. John Constanza, Carl Gafford, and Karen Berger, with a lovely cover by Steve Lytle. For the synopsis, Starfinger takes on the Legion with devastating effects, according to the in-house log line for this issue. But as far as what happens in this issue, which really isn't that much, on Mars, some of Starfinger's henchmen destroy part of a resort that would not pay his extortion percentage, and Sensor Girl, Colossal Boy, and Element Lad arrive to capture them, demanding to know where is Starfinger. Dawnstar, Mon-El, Polar Boy, and White Witch search for the criminal in the outer colonies part of the galaxy. In the asteroid belt, Lightning Lass, Wildfire, Chameleon Boy, and Shrinking Violet arrive to stop an illegal transaction and get information on Starfinger, everybody's favorite guy. But Sensor Girl and White Witch are able to trace him to a base within a star. The groups converge and invade the base. During the battle, Colossal Boy is severely injured, and Starfinger, seeing that the tide has turned against him, decides to blow up his own satellite. Later, Dawnstar tells her teammates that she cannot trace him any longer, leaving Polar Boy to wonder if the villain perished in the blast. Sensor Girl, however, thinks they will hear from Starfinger again. Dun, dun, dun. Colossal Boy recovers at Medicus 1 with Dr. Gimmel? Gimmel? How do you say that, Peter?
I usually say Gimmel.
Gimmel? Yeah. It's odd because it's spelled Gym, just like Colossal Boy's name. So anyway, Dr. Gimmel telling Yura Allen that it could take months of therapy, so she must convince him to not be a Legionnaire anymore. When Yura goes into the room, she finds Chameleon Boy updating her husband about the mission, and she forcefully asks him to leave. And finally, in space, Starfinger's ring drifts among the wreckage, waiting. And I will say that description is probably the best thing about this issue, if I may be so bold, Peter. Oh my God!
Well, I gave my general thoughts first last time. Why don't you
Did I?
give yours this time?
All right. So we talked last time about issue 40, about the two partness of it. How this second part of the story, how would that change our minds? Would it bolster the first issue? Would it become a cohesive story? Basically, would it alter our view of things? So I went into this eyes open, like you were talking about earlier, to see, will my view of Starfinger change based on this second part? And I will say, while this issue does nothing in terms of my appreciation for the character or lack thereof, I did find him less annoying in this issue.
Hmm.
I think mostly because he didn't really do that much. Um, but I did enjoy how the Legion actively pursued him, and kind of the examination of some of the characters' abilities and the way that they're shown. Just little nuances there. I did not mention these in the synopsis, but we have a couple interludes, like one-page interludes, that I thought was just a waste of a page. So, I mean, we'll see. Obviously, they're in there for a reason, and maybe they're setting something up. In fact, I think perhaps the Brainiac 5 one has some significance coming up here, in several issues. But yeah, I. This was almost a bit of a non-issue to me.
Yeah, I totally agree. I said, as I was reading it and writing my notes, I said, this issue made me feel uneasy. It's not the worst. I
Mm-hmm.
can't remember what issue that was that we really panned, but there was one we both were in agreement that was just not good.
Yeah, yeah.
It comes awfully close to being a bad issue, but there are some things to like about it. There just are. I feel like this issue is hampered. I wrote here hampered by mistakes in dialogue,
Mm-hmm.
hard to understand visuals,
Yes.
an ending that is unfair, unresolved, not warranted for a villain that this is not Universo. This is not Darkseid. This is not Mordru. That ending, come on, Paul Levitz. We'll talk about it, but still.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
I thought it started out okay. The Legion searching for Starfinger, showing their power, showing their muscle. Fine. We're never really told how they are actually searching for him or how they're coming across his henchmen. There's just things that happen that feel like Levitz is checklisting this script as opposed to really
Yeah.
writing
Yeah.
thoroughly
Mm-hmm.
through the script and through the dialogue and making connections. Bad. It's this one really feels the most assembly line to me.
Mm.
Levitz wrote, LaRoque drew, the inker inked, blah 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 blah. Okay, there's your issue, which is really bad for a series that we really like usually.
Yeah. Yeah. Something you said last time about you felt like maybe LaRoque wasn't quite collaborating enough, or not seeing what Levitz was throwing down, and picking up on it and all that kind of stuff. And that comment kept ringing in the back of my head as I
I
was reading
know.
this issue.
I feel like this is where Levitz kind of just gave up and kind of said, LaRocque is never going to give me what I want.
Ah.
And that's unfair for me to say because I don't know. But I also feel like I don't feel like LaRocque is shortchanging what he's trying to do.
Mm-hmm.
It's just I don't think he has the experience, which is crazy to say because he's been on this book for so long and he was working at Marvel. So it's not like he's inexperienced.
Yeah.
It's just where is Joe Orlando? Where is uh, pick any editor, Joe Kubert, Ernie Colon, like any of the editors that were artists to sort of shepherd his artistry. Like Karen Berger's not doing enough. And
Mm.
maybe Levitz is not doing enough because he's
Mm-hmm.
used to artists who are able to think of what their role is without the writer telling them.
Yeah.
Giffen,
Yeah.
Lytle, even
Mm-hmm.
Jurgens, we talked about Jurgens last issue. Um, LaRocque, I think you said way back something about like the script is the script, or I read it somewhere, like that's just it. And there have been many reviewers who have looked at this period of Legion and they just constantly bash issue to issue to issue to issue. I don't feel that way. I really don't. I think,
Mm-hmm.
we've gone through enough of these LaRocque issues, Levitz and LaRocque issues that we actually liked, that even if the artwork maybe wasn't where we wanted it 100%, we were fine with it. It got the job done. Great. This is the one I'm just disappointed in this issue because when we get into sort of the mystery that also comes out in this issue, um, I guess this is unfair to say, the weight of this just doesn't mean anything to me, right? Which is so unfair, Like we went through the Universal Project, we went through Sensical, we went through Superboy. Not every story should have to be like
Mm-hmm.
that weighty. But come on, Levitz, give us something. Give
Well,
us.
that's just it. That this whole time, and this has been my major complaint on about this character since day one, is that he is he is presented as if he has weight, and he does not.
No.
Either in the story, or just in the way that he's presented,
Yeah.
not visually, because it's a cool visual and whatnot. But yeah, Levitz is just he. It's almost like he's trying to shortcut that weight that we're talking about here, and just expecting us to just go along with it, and it's not there.
Yeah. I even wrote somewhere around pages 22, 23. I was like, this is the most straightforward hero versus villain fight that we've had in a while. We've
Mm.
had confrontations, but they usually meant something else. The Legion was trying to get out from under Universo's control. They're fighting cosmic beings like Infinite Man and Time Trapper. Even if you go all the way back to the Legion of Super Villains, which in essence was just a good versus evil fight, there still was so much more that was at stake because of Orlando being sucked out of the Earth, our universe's dimension. People were being held prisoner. Nobody knew what the real plan was for the villains, but yet it still felt more threatening. They felt more threatening, even if it was just very simply good versus evil,
Mm-hmm.
hero versus villain. This is, when we got to the battle at the end, I guess it speaks to Starfinger's character that he wasn't part of the confrontation,
Right.
but I would have loved to see it. I wanted to see it. Like, show me what that ring can do. Show me what you can do. But maybe that's not the point. But then don't give me this ending that I'm supposed to be like, oh, but he's going to come back and kill you all. What, is he really? Really? This guy? Come on.
Exactly. Yes. Yes.
Yeah.
Welcome to the dark side.
Any other general thoughts?
No, I think that pretty well.
Yeah.
I'll just end up repeating myself if I continue on
Yeah.
that.
Because you're right. Like I remember saying in that first episode or last episode, I didn't know how it wrapped up. So I didn't know if the first part was, if the second part would make the first part better. And really, I just think the two, I don't know. There was some potential, And I think some of it played out, like Censor Girl mildly threatening Starfinger at the end of the last
Mm-hmm.
chapter
Mm-hmm.
sort of plays out. Here, they're certainly more aggressive. They're on the Legion is on the offensive in this issue.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, that's great.
Yeah.
But it all comes across as very bland. It's all very bland
Yeah.
and
Yeah.
just not, I don't know. There's no magic. There's no magic in this. There's a few things, but there's just like, you know, there's no stakes, there's no escalation. I'm like, I'm not, I wanted more. I wanted more.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah.
okay.
That should be the subtitle of this episode. I've wanted more.
Let's talk about the cover. Steve Lytle.
The highlight of of this issue. Uh,
It certainly characterizes what the story is. This villain who thinks of himself as larger than life, even if he doesn't necessarily come across that way. And the Legion of Superheroes just actively going after him. And we have all the characters on the cover that is more or less in the issue, minus a bunch. I love how Levitz does his Mysterio bubble. I like the way he designs that. That's pretty cool on the cover. For
mm-hmm.
a costume that is just like a costume that I would have drawn when I was 10, 11, 12 years old. He makes it look okay.
Mm-hmm.
He's not my favorite character design.
Yeah.
But it's a good, and I actually like how it connects to the previous cover where
Yes. Yes.
yeah, is that
That's
what
the
you were
thing.
gonna say? Yeah.
That's the thing I loved about this was that for a two-parter where in the last one we had his larger than life hand crushing suppressing the Legion, to this still larger than life, you got the confrontation. I just thought it was a nice progression showing us I guess really the potential of the story more so than the story itself. But I got more of a thrill out of the story the two covers were telling than what was actually in
Yeah.
the what 46 pages that we got of the two issues.
Yeah.
And I love you mentioned the bubblehead. I really like how Lytle draws Wildfire's new look
Mm-hmm.
more than anything I've seen in on the interior pages
Mm.
for that character.
I'd agree with that because there's real definition in these characters where I feel like the interior pages there's some shorthand stuff going on,
Mm-hmm.
and it's.
Or it's DeCarlo's inking his over inking, his heavy handed inking.
Yeah,
So
yeah.
however you want to describe it.
Folks, I don't know how this episode's going to turn out with this. I do. I just feel so sorry that we're giving you a 1-2 punch of just issues that we didn't enjoy. But, hey, we didn't come into this saying that every episode we were going to like every issue. So,
Yeah. Just we didn't realize it was going to be two in a row.
yeah.
I will say before we get too far in, the title of this issue is "Shall Ne'er Burn So Bright,"
Mm-hmm.
which I made a slight comment on, because I like the kind of like the poetic "ne'er" for never,
Mm-hmm.
and of course it's ellipsis. You have the ellipses at either end, which is a continuation of the last issue's title, which is whatever Starfinger touches. Is that right?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah,
Mm-hmm.
whatever Starfinger touches. ... shall ne'er burn so bright. And so I was like, okay, you don't use a word like ne'er unless you're trying to evoke something.
Mm-hmm.
And so I was thinking, okay, I Googled shall, ne'er burn so bright. That's got to be from something, right? I couldn't find anything.
Nope, it's not.
I mean, there are burn bright references like from the Bible and stuff. I thought, oh, maybe he's trying to do some sort of touchstone to that, but the verses that I was looking at didn't really match anything here.
Right.
And so again, I think this is maybe him, Levitt's trying to adds some weight that's just not there in terms of the storytelling. But just think about what the titles are telling us. What Starfinger touches shall never burn so bright. So what does that mean? Is that a reference to he's his Starfinger himself is the thing that shall outshine everything, or is it some sort of reference to the fight that we get, especially involving Colossal Boy? I'm probably searching for something more important than is actually involved with what the titles actually mean.
Right. Or that he has his fingers in all of these places that he's trying to take money from, take profit from, take resources from. So they're forever tainted. I don't
Mm-hmm.
know.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Well, and then there's also the star base, the
Hmm.
literal star base in the issue. Maybe that's maybe that's what he's going for too. I don't know. It just a title should have some meaning at the very least to what the story actually is. And I was like, I am not sure what you're going for here.
If we take a look at like the various ways that the individual Legionnaire groups are going after Starfinger, I feel like this is where some characterization stuff did play out, could have played out, maybe made some Legionnaires stand out more than others.
Mm-hmm.
Put some Legionnaires in a good light, some Legionnaires in a not so good light. There you go. Maybe that has something to do with the
Ah, okay.
title. Because you have someone like Wildfire, like if we start with an easy one like Wildfire, who's always been so brash. If it's not him, it's Timberwolf.
Mm-hmm.
Um, and he's in that, let's see, third group that we see with Lightning Lass and Chameleon Boy and Shrinking Violet. And he's just really just going gung ho. I mean, he has to be reminded in one of the second encounters that no, you can't blow up this star base. You're gonna kill people, right?
Yeah, yeah.
Which, to be fair, comes after a scene with Dawnstar, so maybe he's just grumpy. But even in the first sequence, like in pages 10, 11, 12, where everybody's trying to find out where Starfinger is, and he's threatening this new person, treasurer, right? We've had an arranger, now we have a treasurer, and he's screaming at him, and the guy passes out, and Shrinking Violet's like, hey, you're spitting out a lot of radiation. What are you trying to do? Does some of that have to do with his new body? Does it have to do with the later scene with Dawnstar, which is totally out of place, it feels like, and out of sequence of events? And he's just one of them, right? I feel like he's one. White Witch surprisingly gets a much better job to do in this one than she did. She's able to handle it better than she was in last issue.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Dawnstar, Sensor Girl, Colossal Boy, which will play into some other conversations. What are your thoughts about the Legion themselves? Like, how do they come across in this issue as opposed to last issue, or just in this issue alone?
Well, I basically mirror what you just said because they I guess because they're more proactive, and and like I said earlier, we get to see, and you mentioned it too, but you get to see them do things a little differently in some cases, and what along those lines, and so it seemed like it was more focused on them, but given the short scenes and the repetitiveness of the
Yeah,
scenes, because it's basically all of these groups of legionnaires in the various places are just doing the same thing until they get to the star base, and then it's just one big battle scene.
right.
But yeah, other than that, I think the only, I'm looking at my notes here real quick, the only point that I had about the characters besides of what they do is that Wildfire seems angrier than usual. is what I wrote. And it is that scene that you just described, and then later after post Dawnstar scene, and that's what I take away from him is that there is something going on with his new body situation,
Mhm.
but we've not been given anything along those lines other than his behavior. And his behavior really isn't that far off from his normal,
Mhm.
whatever Wildfire's normal is, except he is a little more, he's less careful. He's being a lot more reactionary for him, which is that is something. So,
They all have a goal. They're trying to find out where Starfinger is, and then there is a point where both Sensor and White Witch come to the same conclusion, and then they call on everybody, and they wind up at that star base under a distant star, or whatever that is. Um, but for instance, like, I'm always trying to find out, what do I learn? Do I learn anything? Are there any continuations of
mm-hmm.
camaraderie, of relationships, et cetera, et cetera? And there were some things like I felt like, so like on page 4, Colossal Boy is going after one of the henchmen who is flying off in some kind of like, floating platform, and then he he gets kicked off, and he says, "Oh, off Legionnaire." And he says, "You know what? That's a good suggestion. Sometimes I forget to take advantage of my flight ring, because he's usually a big dude, right? Like he gets big, he doesn't need the flight ring because he can just reach to whatever."
Right.
And I did write here, like, that's kind of fun to see a giant dude flying, not just a whole bunch of little
Yeah.
Legionnaires, but like a huge colossal. But not only is he big, and now he's gonna fly as well. So something small, a small little thing, but I was like, that's fun.
Mm-hmm.
Okay,
Mm-hmm.
helps me keeps me engaged. I'm just gonna bounce around a little bit. The thing with White Witch on page 6 and 7. Um, they're trying to rely on Dawnstar's um, tracking to see if she can find Starfinger, but she's like, I've never been in his presence. This ain't gonna work. I wish Levitz would have set up a little bit more of a mystery in the first chapter, that they've been looking for him, but I never got the sense that he was that deeply buried somewhere. That he was really somewhere, that when you got the reveal, you were like, ooh, that's cool. Like, he should have been in the Fortress of Solitude. Like, you know what I mean? Like, he should
Oh
have been
yeah.
in the
Mm-hmm.
Batcave if you
Mm-hmm.
really wanted to make it some monumental place, you know?
Well, and not to mention the fact that the guy is so blatant with his, the issue opens with these three goons out there on Starfinger's command destroy the resort right in front of it.
Yeah, yeah.
They have no, there's
Subtlety.
no subtlety, exactly.
Yeah.
And this is Starfinger in minuscule with these henchmen, right? And yet the Legionnaires have the science police. Nobody has no idea where
Nobody.
this guy is.
Nobody.
No connections. No pointers. It's just how would this happen?
Right. It really, something you said last time around about, he probably, for lack of a better word, inherited this organization. He stumbled on this organization. It's all dumb luck. It really does come across that way of just, he doesn't realize what he actually has. Otherwise, he wouldn't just be messing around with protection rackets and trying to get money by stealing objects for other people. He'd be doing a lot more if he really was
Mm-hmm.
using the full potential of his mystery, of his not being able to be found, all of that. Um, the thing I liked in the White Witch thing is, first of all, she's actually doing something. It feels worthy of being a Legionnaire, and she figures it out, and this is page 7, and she's like, okay, you know what? Maybe a name is enough, since it is a name assumed. In the arts of magic, a chosen name carries great weight. We shall see if that weight is enough to stand on its own.
Mm-hmm.
And because I love to do these kind of things, immediately I thought the first time I read something like this was with Neil Gaiman in either Books of Magic or Sandman, this idea of names have
Namings.
power,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
And here it is, years before, at least 1, 2, 3 years before.
Right.
Um, and she's saying the same thing. It's probably a thing you know about magic. Like it's probably something that was written in fantasy novels, magic novels, role playing games. Names have
Yeah.
power. I'm
Yeah.
not familiar with that, but when she said that here, I dug that. I really did. I was like, oh, that's cool. You know, I've always felt that way about what Neil Gaiman said about magic. I love that whole notion. I've used it myself in directing in plays. Names have power. Names have meaning. You just did it with the title of the issue. You know, we do this a lot. Um, and it's a small thing, and it's not even really a Legion thing. It just was nice to see White Witch do something, actively do something, and successfully, quote unquote, do something too.
Yeah. And not be nearly a victim of surroundings as
Right,
we
right.
although it's kind of touched on later in the issue where she's, you know, she's helping out, she's doing something, but she's having a hard time keeping it together.
Yeah. I think what I'm trying to say is that I don't want the Legionnaires to be punked by this punk. Like they should not come across in such a bad light with a guy like this, you
Yes.
know?
So wait, so how many legionnaires did I 12 legionnaires against Starfinger and a couple henchmen in
Yeah,
the end, right? Including the most powerful of them
sure.
in a physical sense, Monel, right? I was like,
Right.
what? This just is so weird.
Some of this may have to do with what we might learn in another Starfinger story. Certainly, the ending kind of suggests some things, which would make sense. I sort of wish it was more in this story. The thing I did appreciate is we are finally getting some clues that he does have a connection to
Mm,
a certain Legionnaire, or at least implies um, through dialogue, through location,
mm-hmm.
which unless you know, maybe you don't catch it right away, but you'll certainly get it by the next time we see this guy, and then the truth comes out. But just all of his stuff that he's saying towards Colossal Boy in the later part of this issue on page
Eight,
18.
yeah, 18.
Yeah.
Yes, yeah. When I read that, I was like, okay, this is the thing that was spoiled by Paul Levitz in the letter column. That there's a connection here. Although that is just merely inferred
Yeah.
from this. So
Yeah.
yeah, see, Starfinger sees Colossal Boy, looks like he's ripping off a head of a robot, I guess, which is kind of cool. Intolerable. So here he's still doing the thing that you like that
Mm-hmm.
Starfinger does. Intolerable. They think they can act against me with impunity. Even that one, looking straight at Colossal Boy. I will not tolerate this. And that's when Colossal Boy gets zapped, literally, with the sound caption there. Yeah, especially not from you, Colossal Boy.
Yeah, like right away we should be like, what? Why? Why him?
Mm-hmm.
Why him?
Mm-hmm.
You know? And it's hard to play the keep the mystery because we know what it is, you know, and um even the attack in the very first part of the issue when they're on Nix Olympia on Mars is a clue
Oh my!
if
I
you
didn't
know.
even. I
Mm-hmm.
was not even thinking of that.
Yep.
Oh my god! I'm such a terrible reader. Yes. Okay.
Which won't connect unless you get it's not going to connect until the next time we talk about it. Again, I don't think we're going to say it because
Mm-hmm.
it's not really truly there yet, the mystery,
Yeah.
because the Legionnaires don't know. They're not even saying anything like, "Oh, why did he attack Colossal Boy specifically? You know, why did he point you out?" Nobody's saying that yet. So it's like Levitz isn't he's giving some clues, but the mystery isn't out. So it's not even fair to sort of say why we
Right.
know because
Yeah.
we just know because of experience, not
Yeah.
because of deduction, which is frustrating to talk about. And yet we keep getting some cool things like the Star Bright Starlight thing. You know, they're fun. Okay. Goofy, silly. Uh, I actually like their designs a little bit. We're not told how they come about. We're not. They mess up their names on their introductions because the lighter hair one calls the dark haired one Bright the first time, but yet the
Mm.
dark hair calls the lighter haired one Bright Star Bright the next time. And it's like they messed that up. So you're like, you don't know which one's which. You don't really, you get some notion of their powers here and there, you know. Um, but it's that missed opportunity that most of this issue is, because it's like,
Yeah.
oh, there they are. Oh, cool. What do they do? Okay, they cause a little chaos. The artwork doesn't really show what's going on. Like on page 22, I don't know exactly what one of them is doing to the Legionnaires. You know, they're bodyguards because he's such a schmuck. But why should he be? Because, you know, he took down Colossal Boy. You know, it's all very missed opportunity ish.
Yeah. Hmm. Yeah, that battle scene in many panels. It seems like people are just kind of milling about, and nothing's really going on.
Yeah, or I just don't understand what's supposed to be happening.
Uh huh. Like I said, 12 assembled Legionnaires, or maybe
Right.
13, depending on a particular couple panels, and they can't take out three villains plus some
Henchman.
robots.
Right.
Come on. So what you said you like the design of Starbright. What exactly about them did you find appealing?
I think just the nature of, you can tell LaRoque likes to draw them.
Mm-hmm.
The lighter haired one reminds me of Bernadette Peters somehow. You know, Bernadette
Oh
Peters
yeah,
had that very, you know, very poofy hair.
I could see that.
It's a play on the whole star thing. Okay,
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
got that.
Sure.
I do have a soft spot for one-off characters that are, you know, feel like they could have potential. There's also in a World's Finest Comics issue, Superman and Batman go up against the Moon Dancers, I think they're called, and it's like these three female characters. One of them is like New Moon, Harvest Moon, and forget what the other one is. Like they all have, one can grow, one is like the cold darkness, and the other one is kind of like a, I forget what her powers are, but they were cool because their designs were similar. They're like a trio. They had cool powers, and then you never saw them again. And it's like, oh, that's cool. Like these little one-off ones that actually feel like they can have potential, not these villains that are like one-offs because they're terrible. You know, um, I don't know. You know, are they really all that different from Flair in the Fatal Five when we got to her? Probably not.
See, and
You
that's
know,
that's that's what I was thinking of too.
yeah,
It reminded me of that character for sure.
yeah. Because I want the Legion of Superheroes to go up against other superpowered
Mm-hmm.
characters, not just
Mm-hmm.
henchmen. So if they're, you know,
I will say though, their introduction on page 15, and this is their first appearance, is this issue.
yeah,
They're just there in the fourth panel here, and uh, Starfinger says the only question that would remain is whether I would sully my hands with your blood, referring to the. I guess he's talking about his
the
arranger there.
Arranger.
Um, and then Starlight or Starbright, whichever she is, because you're right, because they do mess that up, calling each other. But she says, the light haired one says, please, no, master, no, master. Let Starbright and I attend to your wishes instead. So are they, what is their back? That did make me intrigued. What is their backstory? Why is she calling him master? Why are they, because the body language does not seem to me to be it's not that they want to do, or she wants to do this. The way that she's holding her hands behind her back and she's looking down, it seems like she's like beaten down, and this is what some a slave, how they would behave, and not obviously with the using the term master. It's like how do they get the job, or or how did he get them under his sway, that kind of stuff. So I was very much intrigued just by this very first appearance, but then the rest of it is just
Yeah.
generic slugfest stuff.
Yeah. Every silly Bond villain has his you know, female femme fatale, whatever you want to
Yeah,
call it,
that's true.
right?
Well, there you go. That's again, trying to import more weight than is actually there, right?
Right.
Making that reference to Bond. That's a great analogy.
Okay, so White Witch comes across where he is because of the name thing.
Mm-hmm.
Then we have Sensor Girl. She also comes across discovering, this is page 13. I mean, they're there. They're at the star, and they said, "Are you sure Starfinger's down there? I am certain.
Mm.
How did you do it? We knew Starfinger's hirelings customarily dropped his thieving off on certain worlds. I listened until I heard his name in hyperspace transmissions from those planets and found where they led. But there's no way to trace anything through hyperspace. Not using technology, no, but and that's when White Witch interjects, and she basically says the same thing. I have sought concentrations, well, she went about it a little differently. I have sought concentrations of Thars, the planet Thar, of the ore from that planet that he has extorted from the natives, and found them on a most improbable place. So she also attempted to do the name thing, but it didn't work for her, although it worked for Sensor Girl, which is interesting.
Mm-hmm.
They both discover this information around the same time, even though Colossal Boy, Element Lad, Sensor Girl, they're already there. And prior to that is when Shrinking Violet gets the message from headquarters that there is a message. Basically, I'm assuming it's like, hey, we figured it out. Everybody, come on, let's go.
Yeah. Yeah.
My question is, was he always at this base? Because the Arranger's kind of showing, like, on page 15, you can see how this new base will serve you well. It can concentrate a full 0.0001% of this star's energy for your requirements. Impressive, but will it be enough for Ranger? Which I get the notion this is not where he's been,
No,
right?
same.
Okay.
I just from that, how this new base will serve you comment, it made it sound like this may be in fact Starfinger's first visit to this base.
Which makes this whole search thing kind of strange and weird, and I don't know. I feel cheated about this isn't even where he was.
Yeah. They should have, especially like the ore concentration thing. Maybe it would have been the his actual base of operations.
Right, right. And I want to say that I think I got spoiled on something about him, and it doesn't show up in this. I can't remember if it shows up in the Who's Who either. Um, that maybe that's where, again. God, now we got to go to third story, which I don't remember when that is. Um, all these questions, they're not. That's the frustrating thing. They're not questions because they're not fully realized in this issue.
Mm-hmm.
It's only I'm just spitting out these thoughts because that's what I remember, and that's what takes the fun out of this issue, because it's like it's not in any of this. And like, we're supposed to chase after this base, but who cares? Like, it's a cool bit. Like, don't get me wrong, I do like the idea. He's practically hiding in a star. His name is
Mm-hmm.
Starfinger.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, I'm there. I'm with you.
Well, go back to your James Bond. That's a very James Bond. It's a
Yeah.
base in a volcano. It's a base in a star.
Maybe that's what Levis was trying to do with this character.
So this is Starfinger's Doctor No. Is that what we're supposed to get out of
I
this?
guess what Bond movie was coming out in the 80s? Where were we? And
Hmm.
you know, all right. What are some of your what do you want to talk about? I
Well,
feel like this is the most rambly I've ever been
yeah.
on one of these. I so apologize, listeners.
Well, I think you touched on it earlier, and I mentioned the facetiously about the 13th member of the Legion during the fight. Um, or this is something. This is or maybe I'm totally misread this. So this on page 21.
Hmm.
So we see Dawnstar fighting. I don't know which one to call her now, Peter. Starbright, Starlight, the dark-haired one. Oh yeah, and then we see right behind her is the other one, and it's Mon. She says, "Monel, come here," and he says, "Yes, Dreamy."
That's a mistake.
Yeah. So well, and so what I thought that first too. I'm like, well, or is this one of her powers
Right.
to I don't know what to make men do her bidding or whatever. And like, what? That's weird, but okay. Or was this a total mess up on the artist's part? And Dream Girl was supposed to be there.
How would Levitz not look at that and go, that is not,
You
you can,
know?
it's, yeah, it's really bad. That's one of the mistakes that I was like, Burger, come on. That's terrible. Because she's referenced in the later thing about, trying to heal Colossal or somebody. But that's so clearly not her.
Mm-hmm.
We haven't seen her the entire issue. Why would you dialogue it that way? I also thought it was a power thing to get Mon-El off the table, but the
Right?
artwork doesn't support that.
Yeah.
There's no like aftermath of him going, "Oh, what happened? Why did I suddenly run from the fight?" Oh, I guess that was her doing. She made me do. No, there's none of that.
Yeah. Again, sort of the shortcuttedness nature of the story. It came across to me like I can't have Monel here because he'll mop the floor with everybody. So let's get him off the table. And this is the way to do it, I guess.
But it doesn't make sense.
Yeah.
Just like if you go page 15, the alarm goes off because the Legionnaires have found his new base. He says, "Impossible." You turn the page, Colossal Boy answers, "Wanna bet?" But then Wildfire says, "But where is Starfinger? We still don't know if he's even here." No, Dawnstar says, "Where is Starfinger?" And Wildfire says, we still don't even know if he's here. It's only a guess that this is his HQ." Then who is
What?
Colossal Boy talking to?
Yeah.
Because then Colossal Boy says, "Another wall down, Lightning Lass. Nice teamwork." And that wall breaks down, and now they are confronting Starfinger face to
Mm-hmm.
face.
Mm-hmm.
So who is Colossal Boy? Why is he want to bet? What's he talking about? That's terrible. Burger, Levitt, somebody, Costanza. Nobody's looking at that and going, "I don't understand what the heck that is."
Mm-hmm.
That's bad. That's bad. That's bad comic book making.
It you know how they do a lot of times, they'll plot the thing out, the artist will draw it, and then they'll do a dialogue pass
Mm.
later, and it seems like I yeah, somebody was well, at least two people were asleep at the wheel here.
At least.
Levitz and Berger at the very least. And Costanza too, right? I mean,
Uh,
three people that could have said, "Hey, this doesn't make sense."
if they want to say that these books are a collaborative effort, at some point you got to go, "Hey guys, you kind of got to take a look at this."
Mm.
That's the point. That's the stuff that really just makes this issue so bad.
Do you want to talk about the thing that really made it bad for me anyway?
Which one is what's no? What's this?
The one page with Timberwolf.
Oh, I'm surprised you didn't say Wildfire. Okay, is
No,
that
no,
that's
I
okay? Let's go to we'll go one and the other. Go for it.
well, okay. So he's just there complaining to Sunboy about being stuck at the monitor, having monitor duty. The only thing that made this at all interesting, besides his, not besides, to offset his whining,
Hmm.
I I go back and forth on my distaste for Wildfire and Timberwolf these days
Mhm.
because they're just they whine all the time. They're just incessant whiners. Uh, but um, Timberwolf at the end of that scene says, "Damn, billions of credits to my name. Half the galaxy knows I'm a hero, and I get stuck like this." It's like, where did this ego come from on this guy? He's always been a bit of a. I kind of equate him as a bit of a forgive me jock personality,
Mhm.
um, but he seems to be getting a little full of himself here, and I'm not sure where that's coming from because
Right.
we don't. It's nothing's being built up here. But like I said, the that one little bit there, it's calling back to at least something that has happened before. One of the issues that we really liked in featuring Timberwolf. But that whole page of why is this here? How does this move the story forward? How does this progress the character in any way?
Right.
I mean, I guess, and if I'm being fair, Sunboy is just a he's just a guy in a suit next to Timberwolf in this page. So,
It came across to me as a lot of telling and not showing. We're getting way too much telling
mm,
with certain
mm-hmm,
characters.
yep,
He says here his relationship is, the thing with
yep,
Morella.
mm-hmm,
We've seen maybe 3 panels, if that, of their relationship in the
yeah.
past. How many issues? And he mentions about the billions of credits to his name. Didn't he once mention about supporting foster homes or something like that? I thought,
Mm-hmm,
didn't he say
mm-hmm.
something like there's a lot of poor kids out there or something like that? Why is that not already taken care of? And I also wrote, maybe you shouldn't have been so grumpy last issue, and that's why you got stuck with monitor duty.
Wait, I forget who was he? Who was
Dream
he?
Girl.
Dream Girl. Hmm.
He was saying, "Why are we out here, Dream Girl? Oh yeah, your
Do you,
power, you know."
do you think Polar Boy is like you need to cool down, buddy? So here you go. You're stuck here for a while.
But he knows that that's part of their rotation, right? The only thing I could think is, is Levitz trying to. There are a couple things in this issue that speak to Polar Boy and Polar Boy's leadership. Is this one of the ways of him sidelining certain characters that Levitz is like, I know the readers wanted Polar Boy's leadership, but I'm going to show them why that's a bad idea, which is kind of not
Mm,
cool, no pun
mm-hmm.
intended, because they wanted him to be leader for a reason. So you as a writer, I hope, are going to validate that and show why he could be a good leader. Why would Levitz go against all those votes and go, I want to make him a bad leader? Like on page 6 and 7, um, where
Well, she's Dawnstar is floating out in space as there, and in the colony reaches
right,
sections of the galaxy sparsely dotted by worlds colonized by Earth. Um, she says this is totally futile, and she's referring to we have no idea who he is, and I've never crossed his trail. It does exceed to the known limit. It does exceed the known limit to your powers, Dawnstar, but why not try? I'm not sure who's saying that. Maybe Monel. We have nothing to lose. We clearly see him saying that. Yeah. And then Polar Boy says, "Thanks for backing me up, Monel."
right,
And so
right.
obviously Polar Boy has them out there. This speaks to the leadership thing.
Mm-hmm.
They're just flying around, hoping that they come across something
Right.
in space, in the vast infinitude of space. I mean,
Yeah.
Jesus.
The only way to stop him is to find him. Yeah, so like that's one area where, his leadership can be brought into question. Also just that, what he says here about White Witch on 7, does all that light and illusion really do anything? She stood alone against Mordru once. What more do you need to know?
Mm-hmm.
Again, he's inexperienced. He doesn't quite know his team, maybe, which I'm not going to fault him for that, like, okay.
Okay, but he was also on a team of substitute heroes who were constantly ignored and put down by the Legion, or at least they could
Yeah.
be they could be perceived treating them that way, and yet he's gonna discount somebody else that he's working with. That just
Right. And then in 24 and 25, he also is, questioning his what actually all went down after the base was destroyed. Starfinger destroyed his own base, killed a lot of his own people.
Mm-hmm.
They only managed to rescue a bunch. Element Lad says, "It's you I'm worried about. Polar Boy, you look awful. Did you get injured? Only my pride. I never dreamed Starfinger would destroy his own headquarters and men just to get at us. Thank the stars we all got out in time. If it hadn't been for Sensor Girl's warning, I would have led the team right into a disaster." Dawnstar says, "But perhaps it has been a victory instead, Polar Boy," and that's when they say, "Nobody can sense him, so maybe he died." They're thinking maybe that's the victory, that we're at the end, that maybe we won't ever hear from him again. But Sensor Girl says, "I think we shall hear of Starfinger again, but I don't know from which side of the grave." So again, he's got to think about this whole mission from these past two issues. Is this just some light setup to eventually, maybe there's going to be some other things that are going to escalate and he's going to feel a little overwhelmed as a leader? But Element Lad also had thoughts like this too, and he kind of was an okay leader, I thought.
Mm-hmm.
So
Mm-hmm.
it's always these leaders get saddled with situations that they just can't control because the writers want to write some dramatic whatever. Poor Element Lad had to go through Sensor Girl, had to go through Universo Project, the Legion of Substitute Villains. Polar Boy's got to go through Paul Levitz's bad writing of a 2-part Starfinger story. So I can't blame him.
And the constant discounting of his leadership abilities since day one.
Yeah, right. So my interlude that I was like, what that
Yes.
was the Wildfire Dawnstar thing.
Yeah.
First of all, they're in 2 different locations. Then they managed to hook up somehow. Maybe they're along the way. Maybe both the teams converged. I don't know.
Yeah, that's not clear at all. You're right.
No. What do we learn from this that we hadn't already seen the last time?
Exactly. This is getting so old.
I also don't understand what's happening in that second to last page. She's like, panel, I'm glad for you, Wildfire. I'm not ready to share your happiness. What's that little explosion-y thing? And then he goes one way and she goes the other. What's happening? What is happening?
Yeah. Mm-hmm. And you may recall that in last issue, it looked like was it last issue or the one before, where it looked like in the background of a panel, it looked like he exploded. Yeah, it was last issue.
Yeah.
But it wasn't clear. And this looks like that, similar to that. And
right.
So what is this? Does he gets so overwrought that he loses his form and then he has to reform, and then that's what we see in that final panel on that page. Again, yeah, it's not clear what's going on here.
What do you think Brainy's working on? To go to the other interlude. That was probably the one that was the most interesting. Just
yes.
had no idea what the hell's going on.
Yeah. What do you say here? Starfinger is the last thing on my mind. These experiments are the only vital concern I have in the universe. What could that possibly be about? I mean, I think it has something to do with Time Trapper. That's my instinct here.
Yeah. Because we're at issue 41, and I just know that issue 50 is a relatively important issue. So we're not that far off from several subplots that are going to lead us to issue 50.
Yeah.
Yeah. This being, I assume, one of them. I don't know. How much more do we want to beat up this issue?
Maybe just a little bit, because, well, okay, just a couple thoughts. How long is Colossal Boy actually going to be out of service healing? that'll be interesting to me to see how that progresses, and if it's just more than, oh, Colossal Boy's gone for a while for a few issues, and then he's back and good as new. Is there going to be any kind of ramifications because of this injury?
And it's the future. Short of his leg being amputated, how hard is it for the future to just fix whatever happened?
Right? That would, yeah. How extensive was this damage that Gimel is so concerned and he can't be a Legionnaire?
Yeah.
It's like, did he burn to the bone or something? It's just like, again, the storytelling, and then finally that overwrought final
Oh,
panel
okay.
or
So wait,
final. Oh,
before
okay.
before we get there, what was interesting was Cam and Yura's confrontation, or Yura
Oh,
confronting Cam. Two
mm,
Durlans,
mm-hmm.
especially given Cam was one of the ones that figured out that Yura was
Oh,
impersonating
right.
Smoking Violet way back, and that I was like, Levitz, give me a scene about those
With
two.
them, yes, yeah.
Both of them being friend. Chameleon Boy is a friend of Colossal Boy, and she's the wife of Colossal Boy. Two Durlans in his circling his life. Like, give me that.
Well, and what? Yeah, what's the relationship between these two beings, given that past,
Yeah.
that confrontation that they had initially, but then it's like, I don't know, this is a bad analogy perhaps, but one of your best friends hooks up with another person that is not the best person in your mind, and but they get together and they're married or whatever, and how does that impact your relationship with your friend? And you try to be nice to the significant other. So yeah, there's hope. It's just like all this melodrama is just like right there, and you're not even taking advantage of it.
Right.
And when was the last time we saw Yura?
It's been a while.
Yeah.
Okay. And then the end. Let's go to that.
Uh,
No, sorry for interrupting.
no, that's fine. Um, this was weird to me because you get the narration boxes. Under a distant star, shattered dreams float. I mean, it's almost purple prosy.
I wrote that. Yeah.
Some loom large, filled with burning energies of destruction. And it goes on like that, right? Yeah, he talks about he's equating. He, meaning Paul, is one glistens gleaming in the reflected light of a star, meaning the ring. We see Starfinger's ring within its shining intertron shield. Mysteries abide, waiting for the moment to re-emerge. And we get a few more of this overwrought narration, and then we get that final box where the color of the narration box is not orange background but yellow, and then the Legionnaires will die, and that seems to me to be invoking Starfinger himself. And
Mm-hmm.
so it's like, well, then who the hell is narrating this? What is this supposed to be telling us besides he'll be back?
Mm-hmm.
And we get the Starfinger's ring in the corner of each of this 9-panel grid, getting closer and closer and a bit larger and larger within the panel, and it's just like it's just a freaking ring. I know it's supposed to be a symbol, but come on.
Do you know what happens with this ring?
No, I have no idea.
Okay, because I think the narration could steer you to a clue
Okay.
if you treat it literally what they're saying. Not a thought escapes the shield, not a sign to show it is other than the lifeless ornament it seems.
Oh, right. Yeah.
But within,
Mm-hmm.
secrets are hidden from discovery. When the moment is right, and only then, they will emerge and he will live again.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. I was aware that the ring holds
Okay.
certain things.
Okay. And that was what I was kind of implying about it being so difficult to see where he is or to find
Mm.
out where he is. But in this issue, it didn't matter because he was already at this new base. So that's where I think Levitz fumbled
Yeah.
all about it should be this great mystery that these powerful legionnaires cannot find him.
Mm-hmm.
So Levitz is kind of giving us an answer here, but you already shut your whole
Yep.
mystery down because you gave us a base that he could be located in. So it
Mm-hmm.
doesn't make sense. Now you're saving it for here. And it's like, oh, well, okay. It'll make more sense when you actually find out what it is. This is another place where as an editor, I would say we're seeing the ring way too much.
Mm-hmm.
In those first three panels, it should just be all debris. And then
Yes.
maybe in the third panel you see a glint.
Mm-hmm.
Then you start seeing the Legion ring
Yeah.
getting bigger and bigger and bigger and bigger. Or not the Legion ring, the Starfinger ring.
Yeah, exactly. And give I know I don't know, I can't remember when this was, but the timeline. It's a 9-panel grid. You got an
Oh,
image of something getting larger and larger, and what does that remind you of?
it's Levitt's doing Watchmen.
Yeah.
Exactly. I wrote this. That's the first thing I wrote down. I was like, why the
Uh,
purple froze? This is like Levitt's trying to do Watchmen.
yeah. I love Levitz. He's no Alan Moore.
This is where I wrote, does the story warrant this kind of poetic ending? I don't begrudge him trying to do that. He certainly has had stories with themes. He doesn't usually play a lot with caption boxes. He lets
Mm-hmm.
the Encyclopedia Galactica do that, you
That's
know.
true. Mm-hmm.
He doesn't usually do that himself.
Yeah.
So, okay, I'll let you play with that if it was somewhere else in the story, if the story warranted that
Yeah.
kind of level of writing. It
Yeah.
doesn't. It doesn't warrant that.
Has he done that in the past, or am I thinking of Giffen in relation to Time Trapper?
I don't remember.
Yeah, I think I'm confusing him and Giffen,
Yeah.
but yeah, again, that's just another example of the improperly placed weight of something
Yeah.
in the story.
Okay. That's good.
Yeah,
Yeah. Whew. To know that we are going to come back to him again one
I
other
know.
time.
I can't handle it, Peter.
Wow.
Is it? Do you know? Is it just one more time? Do we just get one more story from
I
him?
know one more story pretty soon too, I think.
Please, God,
Well, maybe not soon.
I hope it's just one issue.
Yeah. You'll see it if you pay attention to the covers. You'll see which issue that is.
Mm-hmm.
So we might be done with the issue, but we have one more. Oh no, we have one more Starfinger conversation in us because Eric and I watched episode 9 of season 1 of Legion of Superheroes, the cartoon from a number of years back, featuring the Legion of Substitute Heroes as they battle Starfinger.
The best of both worlds.
Right.
The episode was called "The Substitutes," and I'll just start off. Uh this is the best version of Starfinger I've seen.
Yeah, right. I told you. I love this episode. Love, love,
It,
love this
it
episode.
is it was fun. It was I and I didn't even mind so much the fact that they're still poking fun at the Legion of Substitute Heroes.
Yeah, February of 2007.
So, wow, really?
And it's really just a typical Legion story, right? There's tryouts, we
Mm-hmm.
meet the subs. The main team is off fighting something, which leaves the subs to fight Starfinger because he just magically just shows up in a park somewhere. And he's now the different powers that he has, is that what the older Starfinger is?
Yeah,
So he's a mix of the old and the version we just read.
exactly. Yeah, yeah. Um, yeah. So each of his fingers had a different power,
Mm-hmm.
and they did. I don't know that I can't remember if Starfinger in the comics originally had that, but he definitely had it, and I think in the Superboy 200 issue, that when he appeared to ruin Bouncing Boy and Duo Damsel's Wedding.
Hmm.
So yeah, that was yeah, that's what I loved about it. One of the things I loved about it was this mashup of the two characters, and then also I don't know, I kind of got a Ziggy Stardust slash Goldfinger from James Bond kind of.
Slash Zoolander kind of
Yes,
thing. Yeah.
that's right. That's the thing that I was missing. Yeah. Voiced by actor Taylor Negron, I guess. Yeah, I that was fun. That was so much fun. If we had that if we had that version of Starfinger, do you think we would might have enjoyed these issues more? I don't know.
Right? Or maybe I should I should start reading his voice
Oh
that
yeah.
way, you know?
Yeah, the accent, I guess, that was what would you call that? Like uh
It's almost a play of the Sprocket character on SNL, the
yeah,
German
I
Sprocket guy.
was thinking, is it German, or is it supposed to be like I don't know, Norwegian or something like
Right,
that?
right, right. Yeah,
But in that vicinity.
right.
It was a lot of fun.
Yeah. And I just looked it up. So the original Starfinger appeared in 1965. The Mandarin from Iron Man appeared a year prior. So I don't know if Mandarin in his first appearance in Marvel Comics, did he have the 10 rings then? I don't remember, but because they
Yeah,
both kind of have similar powers.
that's
So
true. Yeah.
I do. I absolutely love that characterization of Starfinger in that cartoon. When he's showing off his powers and he says, and my sonic power, and he does a split and he
Yeah.
splits. And I mean, I lost it. I was, first time I saw it, I was like, that is brilliant.
Yeah.
That is so funny. You know, his costume is the version that we're reading, but he has the high platform boots and
Yes.
just everything about it is way over the top. And like you said, is like the best mashup of the two. And it's how the character should be treated.
Yes.
He doesn't deserve any more than being just a silly, spoofy, slightly powerful guy, but just
Hmm.
his antics just are in the way of everything.
Well, yeah, and the best part of it, I think, he one of his fingers pops out these furry, like tribble-like creatures that end up being part of the main plot, or
Right,
the
right,
this one of the subplots where the rest of the Legionnaires are dealing with him, and he has no idea
right,
where they
right,
come from.
right,
Why are they there? All he knows is they do his bidding, and
right.
that's all he cares about.
Just like our guy in the comics.
I guess
He
so.
just wants them to do his bidding. I love the one where he does the thumbs down and it's like a rocket
Yes,
booster
yes.
thing and he just takes off. It's so silly. And then the
It is.
subs are fun and that's such a great episode. I really do love that episode.
They really do, like they play up the whole Stone Boy.
Yeah,
Um, but he also saves Stone Boy saves the day,
as he
just like
does in the
he
books. Right.
exactly. And Porcupine Pete is the kind of like he's the polar boy of
Yeah,
the story,
yeah.
getting them together, being their leader. But it makes me really want to watch the. I still haven't done it. I haven't watched the Legion of Superheroes movie, animated movie. So
It was a nice way to just kind of give us a better representation of this character,
it's a bit of a palate cleanser, I have to say.
right? Yeah, it works. It's like they looked at both of them and they went, okay, neither of them are, we can't do it. We got to do something different with this guy. He's a maniac. He looks crazy. So let's make him totally outlandish.
Yeah.
And just everything about it works. So, yeah, if you've never seen it, first of all, if you've never seen the Legion cartoon, it's worth watching. Well,
Hmm.
it's hard to find unless you own, physical copies, but that episode is quite enjoyable.
Yeah.
Anything else on that?
Now that I do have, there was one thing from the letter column
Okay.
from issue 45. Reader Sean thought that Starfinger was Mano.
Oh,
And I'm like, how do you, how do you get, maybe it's the globe thing? I don't know.
Okay.
But I do not see any similarities there.
Yeah, no.
And then to which Paul says in that same issue that they have shown us who Starfinger really is, quote, at least once. Which, I mean, he's basically already told us that as well.
Right.
Or I had read this in issue. No, it was another issue. I was thinking maybe I read it in issue 45 and I forgot.
The very few letters they had about this issue, people were actually quite favorable to this issue.
Yeah.
I was very surprised. It's like they were picking and choosing those letters.
Mm.
Okay, let's take our break. And as we take our break, we want you to listen to this promo.
Just when you thought it was safe to hear a podcast promo.
JL May do brave and bold do comic books do JL May.
JL May do brave and the bold do comic books do JL May.
JL May do brave and the bold do comic books do JL May.
JL May do brave and bold do comic books do JL May.
The annual podcast crossover event celebrating the Justice League is back. And we're covering the 2007 Brave and the Bold series that started with Mark Waid and George freaking Perez and ended with J. Michael Straczynski. Throughout the month of May, participating podcasts will release special episodes on issues in the run. It all kicks off in the Overlooked Dark Knight podcast. Follow the event on social media using the hashtag JLMay2023. Coming this May.
JL May do brave and the bold do comic books do Mephisto. Hey!
That it? Is that what you want?
Things I do for this show.
So that promo you heard, that very whimsical, silly promo, is for a podcaster crossover event that Eric and I are going to participate in for the first time, entitled JL May instead of JLA, JL Justice League, done in the month of May. So it's a crossover I'm not entirely sure when it originated, but it's basically a look at several different themes surrounding the Justice League. So for instance, one year they did a bunch of origin stories that also fed into the Mark Waid, Barry Kitson Justice League JL Year One maxi series. Another time they looked at the Silver Age event by Mark Waid and a bunch of other people. It's like a 5th week event entitled Silver Age. Another year they covered Justice by Alex Ross and company, which you are covering on your website.
Maybe I need to go back and listen to those.
And this year they are taking a look at the Brave and the Bold series, again by Mark Waid. They seem to like Mark Waid comics. And this Brave and the Bold series is the one that started in 2007 with George Perez as the artist for a number of the first issues on the first year. And then what happens is every podcaster takes one issue. Some are taking more than one. And the idea is that you release your episode on whatever day in May that matches your particular issue. Our particular issue, no brainer, is issue number 5 of Brave and the Bold, Batman versus the Legion of Superheroes from July 2007. So
Bendis stole this.
You mean from the Justice League versus the Legion, which I still haven't read? Well, that'll be interesting then to see if there's any more parallels. So our next episode, we thought we were going to do the movie, it will be a Tales episode, but it's going to be about this particular issue, which is the fun of doing a Tales episode because we can do whatever the heck we want. So not only is it going to be a crossover event, but we're gonna be able to take a look at a Legion appearance way outside of our normal timeline, and it'll be interesting to see how it reads as a standalone issue. The Legion that is featured in that story is the 3-boot Legion, the Mark Waid, Barry Kitson Legion, which we have talked about before.
Yeah, favorably, as I recall.
Yes. So, and then that's it. That's all we do is cover that issue, and we'll do it in the same style that we normally do with our issues. And then when we record that episode, we will tell you about what other podcasts you should go to listen to for the whole JL May event. So that should be fun.
Yeah, I've already read the issue, Peter, and it was so much fun to step back into, because I was so excited when I found out that Waid and Perez were doing a Brave and the Bold series. And it was really good for a long time.
All right. So that will be our next episode, and we will drop that. Hopefully, we should drop it on May 5th. Hopefully that it all comes down to my editing. So we're gonna give you some quite a number of episodes in a row.
I was gonna say, given when we are recording this, we're gonna have to do it pretty soon.
Sure. Or we can really just test me and do it right at the top of May and see if I can.
Oh my God, I would not
get it
out
out there.
No.
All right, here we go. Here's our second half, where we take a look at Legion-related DCU appearances throughout September of 1987, starting with Who's Who Update 87, number 5, the final issue of this update series.
Oh, I didn't realize that.
Yeah.
Okay.
Where we get to take a look at Starfinger. Oh God, not again.
He won't go away.
Won't go away. Superboy.
Ooh.
The revised Superboy, as drawn by John Byrne. Starfinger is drawn by Greg LaRocque. And Zamir. And then there are some, one or two notes we can probably pull from the appendix. Starfinger is drawn by Greg LaRocque and Mike DiCarlo. And I might even have just one or two notes about Rip Hunter.
Okay.
In this. Let's see. The cover has Superboy, Starfinger, and Zamir on the back cover. That cover by Pablo Marcos. I think that's who the cover is by.
Yep.
And before we jump into the entries, let's take a look at the letter column where they talk about the future of Who's Who. And they say what will follow will be a 6-issue Who's Who in the Legion. It'll actually be 7 issues by the time we get it. Set to debut in January of 1988, even though it arrives in December of 1987. As a way to kick off DC's 30th anniversary of the Legion in 1988, since Adventure Comics 247 hit stands in February of 1958. It will be by Barbara Randall, Karen Berger, Paul Levitz, and when you actually get to the issue, Karen Berger will be co-editor with Mark Waid, continuing his long relationship with the Legion of Superheroes that probably started around this time and then would go through the 5 years later Legion, the Archie Legion, the reboot 3-boot Legion. So he has his hands in Legion. I love what they say. The Who's Who in the Legion will take Who's Who to the next evolutionary step.
Really?
I guess because of they do it a lot differently than the other Who's Who. You know what I mean? Okay. The format is different. They tell those little short stories in the beginning, and then.
Oh, see, I have not looked at that Legion Who's Who since it was first published.
Ooh. Okay.
So I've forgotten quite a bit about it.
Yeah, and we have to figure out how we're going to actually.
I was wondering how we're supposed to deal with a whole issue of Who's Who.
Yeah, we're not going to be able to do that. So. We'll get that. We'll cross that bridge when we get to it.
Okay.
And then we should make note that there will be another Who's Who update, Update 88, which will hit in April of 1988. That will only last for 4 issues, even though at this point, I don't know, I guess in their mind they're thinking we're not going to do another one just yet.
Mm-hmm.
But we'll continue to do the same thing once that releases. If there is a Legion entry in the update, we will definitely cover it because that's not as many as the Who's Who in the Legion itself. Okay. Shall we take a look at Starfinger?
Do we have to? I will say, the thing that popped out at me in this entry. So this is, you said LaRocque and DeCarlo did the art here. Is that he's apparently what does it say? Apparently human.
Mm.
They're playing a little fast and loose, I think.
Yeah.
Or obviously whatever his next appearance is, they're gonna reveal something.
There's a lot here that echoes some of the things you say. The full structure of this new Starfinger's organization is not yet clear, but it apparently is deeply involved in protection rackets and has the manpower to act swiftly and with great violence. One of the things they have here that I wish they would do more, while keeping his identity secret, his star-shaped sign is frequently burned into the victim's flesh as a reminder of his power. He only really did that like once.
Yeah,
with the original Starfinger.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, we don't learn much, which is good. At least they're not giving it away like they do sometimes.
Yeah, that's true.
And he's a crime lord. That's all he is. It's just a simple crime lord.
Superboy next?
Let's go to Zamir first.
Okay.
I think we're going to talk more about Superboy
right.
than we will Zamir.
You're messing with the alphabet.
Yes. Because there wasn't much about this. It's like, yeah, he's Zamir, right? Like, I don't know. What more did you learn, if anything?
Well, I really, I was surprised to see, first of all, Arn Starr did the art with Robert Campanella, but Arn Starr, our inking assisting buddy on many issues here lately, doing the artwork there. Looks pretty good.
Yeah.
I have to say, they're really, he weighs 750 pounds. That's the thing that jumped out at me. This is a dense alien, and I don't mean that in the cognitive sense.
Right.
I didn't realize that the Gil Dispan were that heavy. That's all. It's just a weird data point to pull out there, but
right.
Yeah, we've seen him in many issues since the first issue.
He was part of the Legion of Supervillains. He was a tangent part of the Universo project.
That's right. Yep.
Which is what they're referencing when they say that he went up against Tellus. In the back issue or in the inside back cover, they said, where they list where all these characters are going to show up. They said Zamir went up against Tellus and the Legion of Superheroes recently, and that was during the Universo project. Yeah, he teleports. He's very unusual. His people aren't usually like he is. Usually they're gentle. He's not. He's got curiosity, which makes him it's not like even like he's a villain. He's just
he just fell into the wrong crowd.
Right.
Just because it's convenient for him, I guess.
And he can create space warps, which makes him powerful. I think it's really, to me, it's nice to have some Legion of Superhero villains like the heroes themselves that aren't humanoid.
Oh yeah,
he's a big giant sea cucumber.
Yeah.
Okay, Superboy.
Yes,
a revised Superboy by Mr. John Byrne and Kurt Schaffenberger, which is cool.
I always enjoyed Schaffenberger's Superboy imagery.
Your takeaway on this?
Well, the first thing I noticed was that they're crediting More Fun Comics number 101 as his first appearance, which is obviously correct. But what's interesting is that in other sources I've consulted in the last several issues regarding Superboy's demise, they list those particular issues as this Superboy's first appearance, which interesting revisionist history there. But
Right.
I was glad that DC decided to at this point in their publishing history decided to respect the history in this way, even if they completely changed the history of the character because of Crisis. So and then the other thing that I thought was interesting about this was they specifically say that that's the sliver of that universe that Time Trapper created, the Pocket Universe, from, is acknowledged to be in a distant, unreachable by any known means dimension. So they're really you can't get there, folks. Don't even ask.
It is curious that, in the paragraph above, Superboy's world was not truly the past of our Earth. It was instead an equally fully realized universe that had been artificially connected to the Legionnaires' future by the Time Trapper. The Legionnaires eventually discovered this, although they never were able to determine if Superboy's universe had been created by the Time Trapper or was simply saved by him from some enormous cosmic crisis that otherwise would have destroyed it, which seems odd because we know the truth. The truth is that it's the first one. He pulled a sliver of John Byrne's universe, of the post-crisis DC universe, and created a universe that was reflective of pre-crisis. So this whole notion that he saved it from some enormous cosmic crisis, that's not true. I mean, he saved it because of his machines, but that's not how the universe formed. I mean, it was already part of something. So
as soon as you started saying that, I flipped to the inside cover to see who the writers were of this issue, and Paul Levitz is one of those writers.
Right.
So I wonder, is this some sort of passive aggressive take on things because he didn't agree with it?
Well, it's very interesting that. So I referenced Rip Hunter, and the thing that I got from Rip Hunter's is this idea about time travel in the DC universe and how it is being shaped post-crisis. And they hint at this thing here, which was also part of the Booster Gold series, that Hunter traveled, to the future to save Booster Gold, and then realized that his original method is a one-way trip. You basically can only make a one-way trip in one certain device, and then if you want to go back, you got to use another device, and that's where they come across a time travel device that was in the Jonah Hex series, or the Hex series. And there is several mentions of time in the appendix. So like under the Time Commander, it says, in the recreated DC universe, there are different scientific laws governing time travel than there were in the former multiverse. So this idea of time, Levitt's writing this Superboy thing. Nobody anywhere in this issue, I'm fairly certain, mentions Pocket Universe.
Mm-hmm.
They always say alternate timeline, which I guess is true. Like in the appendix for Jor-El and Supergirl and Insect Queen, it's always these characters in the first volume of Who's Who are from the alternate timeline version that Time Trapper created. It's like, alternate timeline. I mean, I guess that's true, but
I guess I don't think of it as it's not an. Yeah, I guess you're right. It is an alternate timeline, but usually alternate timelines are, I don't know. I'm gonna give myself a
I
headache trying to
know.
think.
Right, because like I think of like the divergent thing for like Marvel's Endgame, right? Like you do something at this point and it creates a divergence. That to me feels like an alternate timeline. Like, but I
Okay.
guess not. I mean, I guess if they're saying timeline, a timeline is if we draw a line, an alternate timeline would be another line right next to it. And they both run
Right.
parallel until something happens.
Yes.
That's basically the foundation of Elseworlds in a way, you could say.
Yeah, 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 yeah.
Yeah. It's just so happens that the divergence happened, millions of years ago when Time
Right.
Trapper stole a little bit of time. So I guess I don't know. I tend to pocket dimension. See, this is where all these words. This is why we were probably so confused back then.
Yeah. I know. I guess, now the more I think about it, alternate timeline does make it simple as opposed to what's a dimension versus a timeline versus a parallel world, all that stuff.
Yeah, right. Maybe they were right to do the crisis. I don't know.
No.
I mean, that's really ultimately all I got out of the Superboy thing, other than it's a very lovely entry and
Mm-hmm.
um
A swan song, really, for the
yeah,
character.
yeah. Isn't it funny that they got rid of this character and yet we constantly see him?
Can't let it go.
No.
Can't let good IP go.
Is he in the Who's Who Legion? He probably is.
I would think so. I
Yeah.
mean, because it doesn't matter that that there was a Superboy that was before, because he is now the one who was from the alternate timeline
Right. He's a whole
and
other
died,
character.
as they say here. Fittingly, Superboy was buried in on 30th century. Fittingly, that's so. Here it makes it, instead of Superboy being the inspiration for the Legion, which he was in a sense, but not in a real DC reality sense. He's now more a part of the Legion than he was his own timeline,
Hmm.
the past.
Right.
That's interesting. Anyway, sorry. Buried on 30th century Earth, the only portion of the true DC universe in which he ever existed. And I just find in the all these references to alternate timelines in this particular issue of Who's Who, and um, references to the true DC universe, or however whatever ways they refer to the new status quo at that time. It's very meta in that way, and
Yeah.
very very pointed.
Yeah.
So they were really trying to push this on us.
That's such a good way to put it. I mean, I feel like, you know, we already talked about the notion that Superboy is Superman as a youngster. That's one role he had to play
Mm-hmm.
in those golden and silver age stories. Then he very much becomes a totally different character. We've already talked about this, like DC was trying to say he was a different character. DC was trying to say he was the same character, and that's how they wanted to get away. Not where, but Siegel and Schuster were trying to say it was a different character. I forget what that lawsuit was about,
Mm-hmm.
right? But in essence, he becomes a different character. He's Superman when he's younger. He's Superboy because he can have stories with Superman, right? Like the DC Comics Presents issues or whatever. They crossed over many times. And now he's a third character,
Yeah.
this last survivor of a pocket universe, this remnant of, nobody knows why, right? Like the what Time Trapper was saying was that the Legion kept saying that in their history there was a Superboy, and he's like, what? There was never a Superboy. So if there was never a Superboy, he had to create him, right? So it's like he's now this third. Right now in 1987, he's a third Superboy. And then you throw in Superboy of Earth Prime,
Yeah.
like it's really insane how this character Every generation he gets redefined. Every reboot, Golden to Silver Age to Crisis Age, Bronze or End of the Bronze Age or whatever you want to call it in the 80s, he gets redefined. It's crazy.
To the point where now we have essentially two Superboys, even though one of them is referred to as another Superman,
right?
With John Kent, right? So we can't let that idea of a younger Superman go. What that means in various ways.
In the appendix, they mentioned Supergirl in the recreated DC universe. Supergirl never came to be. It is not known whether there was a Supergirl in the alternate timeline created by the Time Trapper in which Superboy existed.
Mm-hmm. I wonder why they decided not to allow that. Why not? Because Supergirl did have adventures with them.
Yeah.
So, and if she didn't exist in the post-crisis DC universe, then who the hell was that? And they just kind of sidestepped that until 5 years later. And that's still a sidestep.
Well, you got to think that Superboy had many adventures before Supergirl was shown as a character.
There was also something in the Phantom Zone in the Index.
Oh my God, yes. That one really.
Yeah, apparently. So, and I think, when the Mon-El entry last time, we touched on the Phantom Zone a bit. Apparently, in the present DC universe, the Phantom Zone exists only as a dimension linked with the alternate timeline created by the Time Trapper in which Superboy existed. Mon-El still spent 1,000 years in the Phantom Zone. All other references in the original Phantom Zone entry to events that took place after Superboy's final departure from the 20th century do not apply to the present DC universe or to the Time Trapper's alternate timeline. Okay. So it only existed as a dimension linked with the alternate timeline, but Mon-El was in the Phantom Zone for 1,000 years.
I guess because in Byrne's universe, it wasn't created yet. It's not until Byrne or after he left that they then restored the Phantom Zone again. Fairly certain there was no Phantom Zone. It might have been referenced, but it wasn't the same way, I guess. It's been a while since I've read Byrne's Superman.
Yeah. It still doesn't make any sense to me.
It makes no sense. This is the twist and tumble and the very, like you say, the meta commentary on their own universe, where they're saying things in the present DC universe. Just same thing in the appendix with Elastic Lad. Not yet known in the present continuity if Olsen will become Elastic Lad. They're already using crisis language that we think was en vogue during Infinity Crisis and Dark Crisis or Metal and, the whole how many multiverses, a multiverse of multiverses. I mean, they're already, in 1987, they're already having to delineate pre-crisis, post-crisis, or in our present continuity. DC already suggesting, yeah, we know, we got multiple. We know you've started reading in 1985. This is the present continuity. God,
and on top of that, things could change.
Things could change. Yeah, they say that a lot, right? With these revised entrants. Yeah, this character hasn't showed up in DC's present continuity just yet. Is it any wonder why we were so confused?
Yeah.
Or why a lot of writers and editors were just like, I don't care. I'm just going to make up these characters again.
Yeah. Well, and I remember that reading comics at that time, and that was kind of the fun thing to see. Well, how are they going to introduce this character that I read, a few years ago in this issue of whatever? And is it, how different is it going to be? And that was fun.
Yeah.
Unless you didn't like that version,
which a lot of people probably didn't.
Yeah.
Case in point, one of the issues we're going to look at just super briefly, Adventures of Superman 435, is doing that very same thing. We're going to show you through some meta thing, oh yeah, we haven't forgotten, or let's put Byrne's Superman up against previous continuity characters because that's fun, right? Oh, look, here's characters. Oh, we said you're not going to ever see again.
Yeah.
Oh, here they are. So this is the secondary book to Byrne's Superman. This was by Marv Wolfman and Jerry Ordway, writer, co-plotter, artists, John Beatty, inker, Anthony Tollin, colorist, Albert de Guzman, letterer, Michael Carlin, editor. I loved the Adventures of Superman comic. I liked the Byrne one, but I also really liked this too, because it focused a little bit more on like the Daily Planet and the way Ordway drew Byrne was very Wayne Boring like, and he was very big, and his big chin and his big body, and Wolfman threw in a lot of like Titan stuff with the Fearsome Five showed up at some point, and Quarak was all over the place in DC Comics at this time, that imaginary Middle Eastern country, and I don't know, there's just something about Adventures. This is where we got Cat Grant. She was in this book a lot. But in this particular issue, he's having these visions because of these characters that need his help, blah, 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 blah. And in all these visions of his 3 love interests dressed like Wonder Woman, these weird Kirby characters popping up out of nowhere. He fights the Hulk, like, which turns out to be Jimmy Olsen, which is evocative of his crazy title that he had in the Bronze Age. And then in the middle of it, he sees the entire Superman family, basically, of the Silver Age, where he says, a horse, a monkey, a cat, a dog, even Lex Luthor, even all dressed like me. What's going on here? All of us are here like you, Superman, all dressed like you. Great Caesar's ghost, man. You're no different than anyone. Don't you see, Clark? Even a bunch of stupid animals are better than you. I mean, it's part of the story, it's part of the narrative, what's going on in his head, but it's also, as he screams there, I'm the last son of Krypton. It's very meta. It's like, and it's Wolfman writing it.
Mm-hmm.
So what'd you make of this little sequence?
Well, it just really that's the thing that I was like really interested in, is that they threw this in. So I realized, it's their visions, whatever, dream sequence, if you will, that kind of stuff. But yeah, it's pulling from the previous continuity. And what is, I tend to want to extrapolate on that. It's like, well, what does that mean? Does Superman have some sort of connection there? Is it because of his Kryptonian heritage that he can somehow remember this stuff, or it's part of his subconscious? It's, it's just, it's kind of fun to let those ideas rattle around in your brain.
Sure.
And of course, just to see the thing, just like we were talking about with the Who's Who, it's like these characters or those versions of those characters, animal or not, that we were told we would never see again, and yet here they are.
Here they are.
by the man who wrote Crisis.
Right. And like, he shouldn't be surprised about the dog. He's seen the dog. He battled the dog.
Oh, right. Yes. Oh, yes, of course.
So he shouldn't forget about that adventure. Or is that just too small of a plot point for them to carry on? Like, they don't want to carry on that story, which is a shame, but, for as much as they try to forget, they bring back, but yet they still forget. And then you go, decades later, and Morrison is like, yeah, of course Superman knows. Superman always knows, because he's the one that always gets affected by multiverse changes.
Yeah.
So he's always going to be aware to some degree. And If people have not read that Lois Lane 12-issue maxi series that Greg Rucka wrote around the time when Bendis wrote Superman, you should, because it does talk a lot about this kind of stuff.
Oh yeah, that's right. That
Yeah.
was an amazing story.
So good. I thought it was so well done that Rucka was able to explain the multiverse and what people go through in such a very plain language kind of way, especially when you get to the later issues. I was really fascinated by it.
When did that come out? What year?
Oh, like 2018, 2019.
Okay, so pre-pandemic, but so what I was just thinking was the way in which that they were describing how multiversal things affected the people that she was interviewing. It you know, it wasn't because of when it was published, it wasn't an analogy for the pandemic, but it could, you could read it like that.
Sure. Yeah, the first issue was July of 2019. The last issue was July of 2020.
Okay, so yeah, he really could have played that up more,
Possibly.
depending on yeah.
It's really, so in one of my many, many, many projects, one of the things I really would love to do, I would really love to, we're, you know, I am a crisis kid, and I love everything that leads up to the crisis, and I would really love to explore everything out of the crisis, all of the meta messaging, all of the times that they mentioned a crisis, all of the times they mention, oh, I had a dream and that's why I made my costume like this, like
Yeah.
it's all just these one-off lines. Some of them are so passive aggressive, some of them are completely tongue-in-cheek, some of them are completely purposeful. Certainly Morrison during Animal Man,
Oh yeah.
he had a whole storyline that was entitled Second Crisis. It's not only just the mapping of the DC universe, it's the mapping of how much of the tendrils were trying to fight their way back in, and how soon. Because we talked about it during Legends, like when does, and Booster, like when we were covering the Booster Gold stuff, when does Byrne's Superman take over? Then it becomes, when does Perez's Wonder Woman take over? And then I realized you don't really get the change of pre to post crisis until you get the new Jason Todd. Because the Jason Todd in Legends is not the Jason Todd of post crisis.
Yep.
So our next thing that we're covering, Millennium, might be the very first event that features Byrne's Superman, post year one Batman and Jason Todd, and Perez's Wonder Woman. Like, if you really just stick with the Trinity. Like, it feels like there is a month, I figured it out somewhere, it's in one of my notes. There is a month of DC Comics where all the comics that released are in post-crisis DC Universe. But prior to that, they're not. Because either we didn't get the new Jason Todd yet, or something didn't happen just yet. And I had it figured out somewhere. I don't remember what notes they are. So this is what my brain thinks about. So anything else about that Adventures issue?
No. It was a fun little read. I had not read that. Unlike you, I did not read Adventures of Superman except for a handful of issues. I was more focused on Byrne's Superman series.
Yeah, I have a feeling you would like it. You should probably.
It sounds like it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
On the app, it might be a little wordy, because of the time, but really love the artwork. Really love some of the stories. You should give it a read through. Let's keep going. Millennium #1. So one of the things we like to do with DC events is see how they tie to the Legion of Superheroes. And fortunately for us, Millennium #1, the first issue of a weekly 8-issue series, does not tie into the Legion of Superheroes.
Not at all.
Not until we get to Legion of Superheroes 42.
Right.
Which won't be for another 2-3 episodes.
Yeah, Millennium was so I was surprised because when Peter said, "Okay, we're gonna talk about Millennium here on this next episode," I'm like, "Okay, cool. I'll go pull them out of my long boxes," and I couldn't find them, and it turns out I don't have them anymore. I did have those. I know I bought these issues. I know it because my recollection of the series as a whole was like, oh, Millennium.
Right.
uh having said that though, and reread it now 25 whatever years later, I was surprised that it's actually not bad for one, and in comparison to issue 41 of the Legion, I much preferred the writing of Millennium #1.
Mhm.
So it was and then serendipitously, the Grandmaster shows up in the issue. And at the time of this recording, I had just read Danger Street #4, which features the character too. So
There you go. Right, because he is in that first issue special Manhunter issue, which by Jack Kirby, which
Yep.
totally revamped the Manhunter at that point, and then eventually it all gets morphed into the Green Lantern stuff. I think Millennium might be the thing that connects them. I forget. I did a real deep Manhunter dive before because we on DC All Stars we were covering the Bendis Superman stuff and Event Leviathan. So I was like, I'm going all the way back to the Golden Age. I am going to at least read about or read anything that has to do with Manhunter.
Oh boy.
And when you get to that Jack Kirby first issue special stuff, that's where you get the Grandmaster, the lion imagery, the baton in his hand. Even though his costume looks like the Guardians of the Universe Manhunter.
Mm-hmm.
And then I think actually no, it might be in several Justice League of America stories that Mark Shaw shows up, and then he becomes the Privateer and the Star-Tar and all this other crazy stuff. That's where I think they might combine the two of them. And then Green Lantern and Millennium eventually brings it all together.
Yeah.
Yeah. It's some version of that. This is what happens when you have way too much stuff in your head. You can't remember where it all comes from. Yeah, I okay, the artwork aside, because it's not refined, it's a weekly comic. They need somebody fast. So what are the three things? Fast, good, and cheap. You only get two of them.
You two of the three, yeah. Choose two of the three.
But the story has really interesting potential.
Mm-hmm.
And I am someone online who will always now forever say that I think Millennium is much more interesting a story than Legends, because we went through Legends.
Yeah.
And by the time you get to the third, fourth, fifth, sixth issue, you're like, what? They're just spinning their wheels. But in this first issue of Millennium, there's quite a lot that goes on.
Yeah, and I was surprised at, from a plot point standpoint, how, what is this, page 2? You get spoiled as far as some of the characters who are revealed.
Right.
And if you're reading the other titles in which they appear, I don't know this. I was going to add, that was one of my questions for you was this a reveal at that time for some of these characters, or was it revealed in the issue of that particular title right before this came out, so that this is not a spoiler in any way? Or was it?
I don't remember. I mean, if we go by the Legion thing,
yeah,
we're getting the reveal after this issues, But I forget, like, when did Lana confront Super Clark Kent?
Yeah, I should have looked that up too.
Yeah. When did Booster Gold's agent confront him? I want to say that I think some of them happened right before.
Yeah,
I want to say. Yeah.
I would figure that the creators of those particular titles would want to do that, as opposed to it being put in this this limited series. So,
and they had a lot of their ads, right? Remember, the ads were like, one of these three characters will betray the Justice League, and it was like a shot of Black Canary Red Rocket and someone else like Batman or something like that. So
Yeah, it was the lead up to this, as I recall. Again, this is a long time ago, but I remember being kind of excited about, well, what does this mean, and how is this going to impact the story and all that kind of stuff. And then, like I said, I read Millennium, and it was like, no, okay, it's fine.
yeah, at the time it it was tough at the time. Maybe it was one too many crossovers. One, by the third event, we were like, okay, what's going on? I don't know. It definitely had a negative impact on a lot of people. I know for me personally, um, I got out of comics at this point.
Oh,
Um,
Millennium drove you away?
it really did. Actually, what did is I got a bout of chicken pox and I couldn't pick up my comics for the longest time.
Oh no.
That's actually what got me out of comics. But it just so happened to be around the time of Millennium. So there's a part of me that sometimes blames Millennium. I was like, oh yeah, that's all your fault.
Mm-hmm.
So
Well, and there's so much. What I again forgot, I just forgot all about this, is obviously the Manhunters are there. You got the Green Lantern, the Green Lanterns that are on Earth, the Green Lantern Corps at that time. With Crisis, um it goes all the way back to the Guardians and the Green Lantern lore, and we got that here, and Harbinger is in here. Again, just that through line of Crisis to this, and there may be this may be the post-Crisis DC, but and we're it kind of plays fast and loose with was Crisis part of the pre-Crisis DC universe, or was it folded into what is the current DC? Anyway, so we get a little bit of her and the Monitor in here, and
yeah,
and then what I really liked about this was it's really building up the superhero characters with the Guardians coming here. And then we get the I don't know what page this is. 15, I think. Looking at the file that I'm looking at here, with the heroes gathered, that's reminiscent of that Crisis issue, that double page spread that Perez did on the Monitor's satellite. It's just like, oh, they're really kind of drawing you in with the Crisis imagery,
right?
And but it's a different kind of story. So
right.
Those kind of trappings, I was surprised at how much I responded favorably to that kind of stuff.
Yeah, I mean, Perez and Wolfman and company in refined event language, visual and in terms of writing, and I don't want to say creative, because you can make the argument Contest of Champions, Secret Wars #1, okay, certainly the JLA JSA team ups, but as you mentioned, there are certain things that resonate, right? And what do you need at the top of the event? You need your cast of characters. Here they are. These are all the characters that were in DC Stables right now. Infinity Inc., The Outsiders, the Green Lantern Corps, and many others. And they were popular. You got Captain Atom, who his series was, up to issue 10 at this point. Booster Gold, Justice League International, which was up to issue 8. I mean, we even got Green Arrow, right? Green Arrow showing up, oddly enough, and Firestorm, the Hawkman and Hawkwoman. That's what you need to do. And then, like a good crossover, because they absolutely are saying this is a crossover, they set up those last pages and go, okay, now go read all those and then come back next week.
Yeah.
So our task, I know we're looking at this in terms of the Legion stuff, and it doesn't seem like we're going to get much. So whether we continue reading it or not, we'll see. But it'll be interesting to see when we do get to Legion of Superheroes 42, how much of that story we feel can be read without having had read. Like, I mean, we already read the Millennium issue, but it'll be interesting to see, I wouldn't have known that if I hadn't read the Millennium issue. Or maybe it'll explain what it needs to do, because that's what Paul Levitz does. He does do that well. He did say in the next issue blurb, what did he say? He says, he responds to a writer, Laurel Kent plays a major role in our next 2 issues. Next issue will connect loosely with this fall's massive Millennium crossover series. The particular part of the DC mythology that Millennium works with has already been touched on in the Legion. Not sure what he means by that. And that's made it easy to work out an interesting connection. So that's how he sets up issue 42.
Yeah, it will be interesting to once we get through those. Again, I've not read those issues before, so
Oh, cool.
yeah, how I mean I know what I know the reveal, but um how does that how and why did they tie that in? It's just as a marketing connection type of thing, or
Sure.
what was the point and purpose of involving the Legion in this, and what kind of connection does the Legion appearance have on this particular series? Yeah,
None. It's going to be like Legends. It's going to be less
no
than
time
Legends.
no time travel element in Millennium,
I don't remember. Which is why,
even though it's called Millennium.
yeah. So that's why, I'm going to read all the issues because I'm determined to prove that it's better than Legends. Maybe the artwork isn't, but there's some and I know there's like 1 or 2 scenes coming up in one of the issues that is a fascinating, to go back to that whole meta commentary thing, especially concerning Superman. It's totally accidental, but when we get to it, I think it's a great part. So,
well, I can tell you the storytelling of the art in this is better than the last couple issues that we have Legion that we've read.
Oh, wow. Okay, good. Did we even give the creative team? I don't think we did. No. Okay, so Millennium is by Steve Englehart, who was writing Green Lantern, I think, at that time. Joe Staton, Ian Gibson, Bob Lapin is letterer. Colorist is Carl Gafford. Edited by Andrew Helfer. I think it was a team effort between Staton and Ian Gibson.
Yeah. Layouts and finishes, yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, yeah, like you said, you got to do a weekly series, so you got to do it fast.
That's right.
Well, and I think in Legion 41, the Meanwhile by Dick Giordano talks about Millennium here, the dawn of a new era. What does that sound like, Peter, in current continuity? Yeah, first, no series goes anywhere without a top-notch writer. Steve Englehart. Yeah, Steve's earlier work on Justice League, where a lot of the concepts in Millennium first saw the light of day.
That's right.
Did not know that.
Stuff. Yep.
Because I did not read those first issues of Justice League back then. A series that features virtually every single character in the DC lineup would need a penciler with a great deal of enthusiasm and skill. Oh, George Parrish is back? No, we certainly found one in Joe Staton. Joe's enthusiasm shows in every panel of the work he did on Green Lantern Corps. So there you go. And along with Steve Scripps, gave that book a tremendous amount of energy and vitality. And I think that's kind of what I'm responding to in this.
Yeah.
Then he talks about the letterer. He talks about how Joe had a letter printed in one of the earliest issues of Green Lantern. That's how long Joe's been a Green Lantern fan. And then he mentions Ian Gibson. And nothing about the letterer or the colorist, but he does mention Andy Helfer as editor.
Well, it might have been far enough away out.
Oh, that's true. You're right. Yeah.
But here. I don't want to spend too much time on this, but right from the beginning, see, it's an ordinary day in the DC universe. I don't remember them referring to comics as the DC universe pre-crisis.
Right?
I don't think so.
No.
Did
they even do it in Crisis?
No, not to that. No, they never would call it the DC universe. No.
Yeah.
Like, I just think that
is interesting.
Very interesting, very maybe post-crisis, maybe very event languagey. And this is very much a green, it makes sense that the creative team is the one doing this because it basically is a Green Lantern event.
Yeah.
Obviously. If you have Guardians of the Universe, you have the Green Lantern Corps, you have the Manhunters, makes sense. Okay. Shall we close out with one more book? Amethyst #2, continuing our 4-issue look at the origin of Mordru. And this is story by Keith Giffen and Mindy Newell. Mindy Newell doing the script, art by Esteban Maroto, letterer John Costanza, colorist Tatiana Wood, editor Karen Berger. The origin of Mordru, the continuation of this story. The cover basically says it is a battle of magic between Mordru and Amethyst, and ultimately reading the second issue, feel like it's a vehicle for Esteban Maroto artwork.
Yeah.
Because the story's fine. I think there's one or two really great parts, but as I was reading it, I was like, God, I love this artwork.
Mm-hmm.
I just want to keep looking at this artwork.
Yeah, it was really just a lot of the issue is this battle between the two characters, right? Which quite honestly, given the other parts of this issue with the art, like I just happen to thumb to page 12, and you get what's his name, Donald, the blonde
brother
guy. Yeah, he walks into that room, the throne room, and he sees all those bodies and weird, the weirdness of it, and it freaks him out, right? So that kind of stuff I like a lot.
Yeah.
The battle between the two, with the magic, the battle of magic begins, as it says on the cover, which is true. I mean, they do have a battle of magic, but I don't know, I expected a bit more grandeur on the pages, and we do get a little bit of that, but it's a lot of, let's throw some magical creatures at each other, and that's about it. I don't know. I wanted a little bit more flourish, I guess, out of it. But and I only say that because of my reaction to the art and style of the art from that first issue, because it seemed like there was a bit more of a 2-page spreads and splash pagey type stuff, and this is the battle is much more compacted on the page in many of the sequences. So
I think as I was reading this, I was struck by, if this was in Marvel's magazines of the 70s, when Esteban Maroto, I think, might have done some artwork in that. I don't remember, but I feel like it could be equivalent to that, right? Like if it was a Black Label book outside of the DC universe, but still playing with the DC universe in a bigger format.
Oh yeah.
I think he would be he would take more risk.
Yeah.
Now it's a new format book, which I have some information about that.
Oh, good.
Which means they don't have to put it under the comics code, but it is still Amethyst, right? So they have a demographic they want to hit.
They don't want to go too far.
Right. I feel like if this was like Esteban Maroto cutting loose, it would have been. What I'm surprised by is that it's not male gazy, right?
Yeah.
I think it could very well be that with the Amethyst character. I think it could be that. So it's kind of nice. Some of it is Mindy Newell's script or dialogue. Some of it is Esteban Maroto. Maybe they just said, look, we want this fanciful, we want this fantastical, magical, but it can't be sexy.
Yeah.
And I actually appreciate that.
Yeah. I was going to say, though, I think they kind of bordered that a little bit in the last issue with the introduction of Amethyst.
Sure, right. But it was just
but yeah, and here it's not.
right. Because she, her costume could be, way, 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 way different. The one place I look at it and I go, is that meant to be something? What page number? It's when they first have when he first, page 13 on the bottom there,
Yeah.
looks like a uterus, right? Like
Yeah.
it really does to me. It kind
Yep.
of look, you could sort of say, look what he's saying. You are mad, woman. Chaos will not destroy its son. Chaos will destroy order. I mean, there's a lot of things in there in the wording that you could extrapolate, women being mad because of their uterus, you know what I mean?
Yeah,
Like, there's
yeah.
so many things you could say about it, and like the throne room scene could have been way gorier, could have had nudity, it's certainly implied, but you don't really see it. So
Yeah.
but he is drawing a lot though. Like her costume is not easy. All their costume designs are not easy. I love Donald's costume. The red, the orange, the black. So cool.
The billowy sleeves.
Yep.
Yeah. I just happen to land on a page where he's featured prominently, and yeah, it's the same thing there. Yeah, it's I mean, great individual pieces to this. Yeah, like I said, my really my only major complaint was the how I keep wanting to say compact, but that's not the right word. What's insular, maybe that some of the action sequences come across as. Right. But you get, like, on page 19, we get Amethyst spanning 3 panels to the right of her, where she's attacking Mordru in 2 different ways, and we see him falling from that. I don't know that I've ever seen something like that before in a superhero comic book and depicted in that way. So that's I like that a lot.
Yeah. And if we go with the Mordru stuff, because ultimately that's the whole reason.
Yeah.
Why I am Mordru. I need no saving, Lord of Order. This is back on 13 again. Thou art Rin, trapped within the form of Mordru. To go back to issue 1, where they basically, that was the whole reason why they beat him, to kind of form him. I am Mordru, Scion to thy enemies, the dark lords of chaos. And then almost getting Legion lore, not quite. I'm waiting to see where this happens. When she attacks him on page 16, she attacks Mordru, but really she's trying to psychologically attack Rin by creating these horses, because as a child he was almost trampled by a horse. And I was like, oh, almost touching on Mordru's fear of being buried alive, but it's not the same thing. So.
Yes. Okay. So that was the major thing that I kind of touched on in my notes was, why not do that? Why not be more blatant about his fear of being buried alive in some way? Was it just because that's not very visually interesting to show?
It could have been him falling in a well when he was younger.
Exactly. Right. Something like that, right?
Yeah. So maybe that's not quite, maybe the 4 issues will end with that. I just don't remember, because it has to come up somewhere.
Yeah, that's what I was wondering as well. Is like, what did I say in my notes here? Yeah, given his fear of being buried, why not use that instead of the fear of horses, or will that come later? Yeah. But here, towards the bottom of page 16, feel the beast's hooves cutting into the Rin. Feel thy lungs wheezing as his weight crushes thy chest. Which, that could be just like being buried alive, right? Yeah, so that's right. Yeah, I agree. That's they're touching on it, but maybe not as much as we would like.
And I don't remember what happens in the next 2 issues, but I have to imagine Keith Giffen is smart enough that he's not going to forget that. So I'm thinking it probably has to come up, hopefully.
And I, while I, we talked a lot about the art already, but while I appreciate that aspect of the series. In terms of Mordru and connection to Legion, unless something happens in the next issue or two, I don't understand why they didn't build Rin more into Mordru as the series went on, instead of basically starting with him as Mordru, because we already, yeah, as readers, we already know that Mordru survives into the 30th century of Earth, and it becomes a major Legion antagonist. So, what's the point of this? What's the point of Amethyst trying to save Rin? I, unless there's something that comes into this more than what we've been given in 2 issues. This just seems like a wonderful exercise in the artist, on the artist's part, and I don't know what I'm supposed to get out of Mordru himself.
Right. I mean, a lot of it is just, I think, she realizes that he is not turned completely. I mean, he goes and he escapes and says to the Lords of Chaos, hey, take this planet. We won. You were right. She's not going to kill me. And they're like, no, dude, she's not going to kill you because you haven't completely become who we need you to be. She can still defeat you. She can still defeat us. And he even tries to brag, I'm in the place where I was changed, so I have power here. And she said, yeah, you think so, but I am all of Gemworld. You're just one place, So she's trying to free him. She keeps calling him Rin until it comes to a point where she's like, fine, okay, be him if that's really what you want. But then we get interrupted with the cliffhanger where Flaw comes with Emmy from Earth, and we see where it goes next issue. So yeah, that's why I kind of say it's a vehicle for his artwork. Like, you have to imagine that not a lot of people were probably familiar with his artwork.
Mm-hmm.
So we can look at it in hindsight, but yet at the time it's like, oh my god, it's like looking at Art Adams for the first time, and you're like, what is this? What's going on? So it's like, sure. oh, right. There's a story here too. Okay, let me go back and read the story.
And that's always my problem with this, is that, like I said, it's what's the point for Mordru? But then what's the point of Amethyst? What are we supposed to get out of the character for this battle between the two of them, and the whole idea of Amethyst, the series and the world and the young lady, and they only have 4 issues, and yet they've wasted this issue on a battle between the two that was a draw. So it's like, what comes next? So I'm curious, what the 3rd issue is gonna to bring us. But it's like, wow, that if we were not doing this for this podcast, I don't know, other than, like I said, other than the art, it's really cool art to look at. This would not be a favorite series of mine, a favorite miniseries.
Interesting. Okay. Good enough. That's really all we can give to that. We'll come back. Are we doing an Amethyst issue next time around? Well, no, not in the Tales, but in the next, I assume we probably are. And then we'll see how further we get into that whole Mordru stuff. That's all I have for that. Oh, new format. So new format. I got some research. So I think the first title that was new format style was the Spectre series. That began in January of 1987, and we're reading comics from September of 1987. So there was a Spectre ad, and that's where you got this whole bunch of information. New DC format, high quality, Mando paper at only $1. It's the lowest priced offset book we've ever offered. Not available on newsstands. Offset meaning direct market only.
Well, that offset would refer to the printing.
Is that what it is too? Yeah, you're right.
Offset
you're right.
printing. Yeah.
Right. February of 1987, Swamp Thing, issue 60, turned into new format right at the end of Alan Moore's run.
Hmm.
And then other titles such as Young All-Stars was new format. It sported the new format seal on the cover. 24 pages instead of 22. All of the ads, or most of the ads, were in the back of the book, which Baxter also kind of did that after a while.
Mm-hmm.
Better than newsprint, not as good as Baxter. New computer coloring was being used. Doom Patrol Volume 2 would also become new format with issue 19, which I think was Morrison's first issue. Computer coloring, that seems early for that, but all right.
Yeah, it does.
Well, it could mean computer coloring in late 80s could mean a much different thing than computer coloring in the 90s, right? With
Yeah,
Malibu and all that
that's
other
true.
stuff. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I think I remember it being billed to us as, better quality, not as expensive as Baxter.
Right.
If I learn anything more, I will let you know.
Well, you certainly found more than I did when I looked it up for when I mentioned the new format last time. Your Google skills are impressive, Peter.
Got to dig deep. So as we mentioned, next episode will be a Tales episode, taking a look at Brave and the Bold number 5 for J.L. May. And then we'll see if we're going to do another Tales after that on the movie, or if we decide to go into the 2-part Millennium crossover. We'll see. We'll figure it out when we get there.
All right.
All right. Where can they reach you?
They can reach me at longboxreview@gmail.com. And how can they reach you, Peter?
Peter at thedailyrios.com. And as always, long live the Legion
Project Podcast.
See ya.
Take it easy.